Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna record the Zooms then, and then I'll upload it probably tonight.
Okay.
Should be recording, so let's do this all over again. Introduce yourselves, the school you went to for your undergrad, where you are now, and your future career goal and hometown. Okay.
I can go first. So I'm Mia. I'm a recent college grad, 2020 from Coe College, and I majored in psych. I'm from Chicago, specifically the South Side, and I want to pursue a PhD in cognitive psychology and public policy to inform policy through research.
My name is Lillian. I go by Lily. I am a 2019 graduate from UIC with a bachelor's in psychology. My major was psychology, minor biology. My future goal is to become a neurologist. So with that being said, I'm currently pursuing a postbac program at Dominican University, just getting all my prereqs for medical school out of the way. I'm also from the south side of Chicago, but I moved to near Dominican University recently, just so that the commute isn't as dreadful.
My name is Jules DeMay. I'm from a small town called Winters in California, closer to SAC, and I went to UC Davis for my undergrad. Got a degree in exercise biology with a minor in Italian, and currently I'm at San Jose State, which is in the Bay Area, pursuing a master's in kinesiology. And who knows what I want to do in the future, maybe a PhD or physical therapy school.
Yeah, so I'm so happy to have all of you guys here. So yeah, we'll get started with the questions again. So what are some barriers that you faced in college, whether it was financially or because of your race, or being a first generation college student? So you can touch on any of those topics. We can start with Mia again.
Okay, so some barriers that I faced while in college included like adapting to managing my health away from home, coming in with like a 504 plan, having to figure out how to manage like the coursework and what all that includes and the level of like rigor to some of the classes and how much time you have to put into them. Financially, obviously having to work like multiple jobs to afford college can be a bit of a struggle, because then the balance of like work and life stuff can get a little bit messy, as well as being at a PWI in Iowa was a huge cultural shock. And then imposter syndrome when it came to a lot of my STEM courses, because I came in as a neuroscience and pre-med student. And then obviously dealing with mental health and stuff like that's pretty common when going through college.
I 100% agree with all of that. I think that the transition from high school to college was difficult in and of itself. Just the fact that we were considered to be independent now, and we monitor our own assignments and our own homework and things like that. But additionally, yeah, just the idea of being first generation is very difficult. And coming from UIC, which is a ginormous school, it's difficult to seek help because it seems as if everyone knows what they're doing and they perhaps have a role model that is able to help them. But being first generation and the oldest of 3 kids was very difficult, because I also know I'm the role model and I have to set the example, and I feel like all eyes are on me. So that was challenging. And then obviously on top of financial stuff, paying for books, paying for access codes, supplemental resources that probably shouldn't be purchased, but could actually help and benefit you. So those were my biggest challenges by far.
I think my biggest challenge was primarily academic. Just going from high school, even though I took AP classes, just going to way more rigorous coursework. I was pre-med throughout pretty much my entire time. And so it's just completely different than high school for me. Like high school, pretty much 4.0 students. College, definitely not. But as Lillian said, just being able to, comparing yourself to other people, and like, you didn't want to do that because you thought everyone else had it figured out. So it was kind of like, okay, here I am in this 400-person class with these like pre-med students. I gotta just kind of fake it till I make it. So you kind of have that ego, or I had that kind of ego where it was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it on my own. I don't need to ask for help. So that was a barrier for sure, until I figured out that, hey, people have struggles and it's okay to struggle. It's okay to ask for help.
And what would you recommend to students that are struggling to reach out for help? What tips would you give them?
I would say, I mean, just to cut yourself some slack. Like we're all in college, or we're all in a career to excel, and so that you don't get bonus points for doing it on your own. Like you already overcame the obstacle of, you know, graduating from high school. You might be a first generation college student. Like we all have our backgrounds. We already overcame those struggles. We don't need to make college even harder. So there's not a lot of extra benefit to trying to do it on your own. So everyone is there to help you. There's a lot of free services. I had a lot of free tutoring opportunities or workshops and things like that. So it was until I realized that, like, hey, you know, I'm not a genius. I'm not a savant. I want to make sure I'm passing my classes and make sure I'm taking care of business. So yeah, it's kind of, if it's free help, you know, why not? And sometimes you just kind of have to put the ego aside and just do what's best for you.
If I could piggyback off of that, I definitely agree with all that. Really great advice. I would also say, yeah, get involved both on campus and off campus. And I know like a lot of times people always say get involved, but being a first gen, coming with sometimes different economic backgrounds, it can be hard to get involved on campus, but there's definitely always resources and there's always paid opportunities too. So like get involved even if it's off campus and stepping away from wherever your campus might be. I know sometimes they're in really rural, like not so diverse areas, but usually there's still organizations and non-for-profits out there that if you're interested in a certain line of work, sometimes it's paid positions, sometimes it's even paid internships. So getting involved. And I don't want to say mastery necessarily because it's hard, but learning to kind of be comfortable and challenge yourself to overcome both survivor's guilt and imposter syndrome. We can all feel out of place in higher education for various reasons. So just trying to challenge yourself to overcome that. And then step out of your comfort zone. Don't be too hard on yourself. Like Jules pointed out, you know, like cut yourself some slack because when you know better, you do better. But until then, like we're all just trying to figure it out.
I 100% agree. I know that a big part of the reason why I had a hard time asking for help the first year of college was just because, again, I felt that everyone knew what they were doing. And if I asked for help, I would look like I didn't know what I was doing. And obviously you don't want that. But I've come to learn that everyone is not going to influence my grade. What I do influences my grade and my understanding. So it wasn't until my sophomore through senior year of college where I was like, you know what? I'm asking for help. Professors have office hours for a reason. They set time aside for you for a reason. And I also learned that professors actually want you to go to their office hours, that they often feel lonely because no one shows up to their office hours. So that made me feel inclined to help, or to help myself by asking for help. But I also wanted to say that even with, you know, paying bills on the side and having to work full time just to make ends meet, there are a lot of research opportunities on campus that do pay you, and they're very flexible with your full-time job and your schedule for school so that you can work for the research opportunity as well. When I did research my junior year, sorry, my cat. When I did research my junior year, what is the word? I guess the head researcher, she was very flexible with what I was asking for, the amount of hours I wanted to work, when I would work. She was very helpful. So I think just being honest and understanding that you don't have to have it all figured out, and these peer mentors are here to help you, I think that's really important too.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any other, I guess, like ways you guys overcame any other barriers? I know like lack of diversity is always one, and it's kind of hard to deal with that because you're not necessarily in charge of who goes to the school. So how did you all deal with, like, you know, kind of being the only minority? Or there being less of you?
Definitely, I think finding mentors helps a lot. If you can, which not all the time it's available because there's a huge lack of diversity in higher education, specifically when it comes to research too. It's hard to find mentors that you could like find some commonality with, but I think even if you don't have everything alike, you could still find some level of common ground that you could relate to somebody with. So kind of finding that. I think keeping like a diverse group of like friends and whatnot for support kind of helps as well. And then creating spaces for diverse students helps. Like I know when I was at Co, I helped become one of the founders of I'm First. So it's an organization for first generation college students, and then AAUW, the American Association of University Women. So both of those kind of tackled, lack of diversity in higher ed and issues with starting groups in higher ed and like what we can do to help, things like that. Yeah.
I'll go at.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Just to mirror what Mia said, actually, in the last question, joining a lot of different groups and just networking, that was big for me. That's actually probably part of the reasons why my grades weren't so hot, because just I like to meet people. But I joined a lot of different groups, whether it was community service groups, groups for my major. I did intramurals. It's literally, that's the best way, in my opinion, to just meet different people that have different opinions, and you're more likely to come across people that that you can vibe with, and that you will make lifelong friends with. And at the worst, you'll at least network. So just really taking the opportunity. I think we always had that first week of school that was like all the groups and clubs and organizations on campus would always table and stuff like that. So just explore the different options that you have, try new things that you aren't used to, play a new sport or try a new hobby, or join an organization that you don't know anything about. They usually have informational meetings, so take time, and beginning of the semester and quarter is always pretty slow anyway, so you can take some time to learn a little bit about your campus.
Yeah, I agree with all that. As well as what Mia said, I think surrounding yourself with people who have similar stories with you is very important as well. I find that when I was introduced to other students who may have had, different educational backgrounds than I have, or perhaps a little bit of extra help, be it with their parents or private tutors, it was a little discouraging because I felt that since I didn't have those assets, I would not be in the same, path as they would. So I think that surrounding yourself with other students who maybe come from the same neighborhood as you, or also do extracurriculars outside of school, such as working or taking care of someone, things like that, it's really important because it allows you to have a sense of adaptability, and I think a sense of just involvement, like knowing that you're not the only one that has a situation like this, yet you still are here in this institution. I think it's very important. And as someone that it was very difficult for me to get involved and to find time after school to get involved, surrounding myself with people like that was really helpful. Otherwise, I think I would have experienced more imposter syndrome than I already was.
And so did you ever feel like giving up on your dream or your career goal, whatever it was? And what kind of helped you stay motivated in I feel like STEM tends to be pretty rigorous regardless of what specific career end goal it is. Like any science classes are difficult. Math is difficult. So how did you all stay motivated to keep pursuing your dream?
Okay, so I know for me, I had to, I think, really teach myself to change my concept of what failing is. Because for me, for a long time, I came into Co as a biology science major, and I expected to do all of that and do amazing, and that was not the case. So I had to kind of adapt to my idea of what failing is, because I thought like, okay, if I switch my major, like, am I giving up on my dream? Am I like failing that? Like, was I not good enough in that? So being adaptable and kind of like the mind frame that you have with what you're doing definitely matters. So for me, I think seeing how challenging STEM was, and to some degree how ill prepared I was for I guess like educated as far as STEM goes, coming from like Chicago public schools into like college level heavy science classes, and I was like, okay, this is a little bit different, a lot more to manage. So keeping that in mind, I had to I think I was lucky to have some great mentors that kind of like put it in me that like, you're not failing if you switch your major, you're not failing if you're exploring something else, you're not failing if something else is what you excel in more, or if something else is what interests you more. And that's how I ended up switching to like psych and neuro for a while, and then eventually just psych. And I'm like, that's cool, I did my research where I want it, and you know.
I think right now my biggest what is the word? My fear of or my way of giving up on my dream is just the money right now. The program that I'm in, I have to pay for out of pocket. So I have taken out tons of loans, and I think just the fact that I have to take out all these loans in order to get the prereqs out of the way it's a little discouraging, because I constantly feel the financial weight on my shoulders on top of, living expenses and things like that. But what continues to push me to pursue medicine is just the fact that I love science. I love people. I love helping people. And I know it's so generic, it's so cliche, and I will eventually come up with a personal statement that doesn't say that. But I really love it. I want it so bad, more than anything. I have never felt like my calling is in front of me more than I have with this particular career goal. So it almost makes me feel invincible, as if the money is nothing, as if it's paper, as if I can somehow come up with it. I'll work, as much as I can to pay it off, and I'll get into medical school. And I think just that hyperdrive of adrenaline of, yeah, I can do it is what really motivates me, on top of, just the passion, and the passion for neuroscience in particular. There's a lot. Sometimes I have random spouts of excitable aggression where I'm like, yeah, I can do it. I'm going to. There's no one that can stop me, and I'm going to do it. I'm first generation. I'm from the south side of Chicago. I'm the oldest, and I did it, and I will do it. And I think those random spouts are what get me through it. On top of the support I have from my family as well, and my husband, and my cats, and my dog.
Wow, that was inspirational. But no, yeah, I think a lot of my sentiment is the same. I think throughout actually, I started off as a civil engineering major when I got to college, and then I changed pretty quickly to exercise. Actually, I didn't technically switch to exercise biology until a couple years later, just because I didn't want to do the paperwork and all that. But in my mind, I wanted to do exercise biology, so I was taking the classes. But I was pre-med at first, so I wanted to be in sports medicine, and then I figured out that wasn't really for me. So then I wanted to do more of like strength conditioning. I did an internship, found out it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do either. And then I kind of settled on physical therapy. So I'm still trying to figure it out. But the thing is, as Mia said, it's not necessarily, giving up on your goal. It's just adapting. And the other thing is, again, finding that close-knit group of people that are also ambitious and are also driven, because, taking an anatomy class, which was like the hardest class I ever took, and, being up late studying with these type of people, it's like you find out that you're all going through the same thing, no matter like how good of a student you are. It's not easy for anyone, but you're all driven, you're all trying to, reach your goal. And then just as Lily said, just really trying to figure out like what drives you, what is your biggest passion. And once you really figure that out, there's nothing that can stop you, even if you don't get into school the first time, or even if you have to take this really hard test and you have to retake it. even if the financial cost is really big, or even if you have to move to a different city. Like there's always going to be obstacles. And one of my old professors said, you know, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And that's kind of something that stuck with me. You know, it's not supposed to be easy, but you just kind of have to, you know, you have to acknowledge what you're going through. I'm not a big fan of like, you know, no pain, no gain, even though I'm a personal trainer, I don't say that very often, but you just have to set your sight on the overarching goal.
So I think we kind of touched on like kind of like advice you would give, or like how you overcame barriers, but like what advice would you give to other students maybe in your shoes or trying to pursue similar careers to you or as you, on how they can be like you and you know how they can be successful in pursuing the career?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this similar to question 7, like the recommendation? Okay, you said yeah, right? Okay, sorry, it's like glitching weird. I would say when it comes to starting like careers or internships or opportunities, whether that's research related or just working in a corporate America or whatever it is that you're interested in, apply to things even if you don't meet all of the requirements, because 9 times out of 10, like there's going to be a training. You can also learn things outside of those hours that you work. And I'm not saying like apply to everything. Like obviously you need certain accolades for certain things, but definitely don't be scared to apply for things that you might not meet all the requirements for. I say that too because I know research shows that, not to be biased here, but I know like men tend to apply to more things even if they don't meet all of the requirements, and they're more likely to get it, versus with women, we tend to not apply to things as often if we don't meet all of the requirements. So taking that risk, taking that chance kind of helps us put our foot in the door. You know, don't let that fear of like, oh, am I really, really good at this? Do I fully know that? Like, just try. The worst you can do is like, they'll train you. You'll see how it goes.
I think advice that I would give to students that were in a similar situation as myself would be to just stop looking at others and comparing yourself. I think that when you are navigating an experience that you're not familiar with and that you don't really have anyone else who's familiar with it, you tend to critique yourself a lot and compare your situation to others. You know, maybe they had a better grade than you did, or maybe they have particular resources that you don't. I think it's very important to just recognize that everyone's experience is unique, but in the end, you know, only you get to influence your grade, your understanding of the material, your experience in college. Only you have control over that. And I think that even though it was difficult for me to realize that the first 3 years I was there, if I could tell someone that is in my similar situation, it would just be to stick to your own self and never lose sight of who you are, as cliche as it is. I came into college my first year as a freshman wanting to become a doctor, wanting to become a neurologist, and then I, for some reason, dropped the goal. And then 3 years later, I decided I wanted it again. And I'm like, if I would have just stuck to my goal in the beginning, then I wouldn't, you know, be a little bit backtracked. But I think now more than ever, I've developed an appreciation for my aspiration because of that struggle internally of figuring out who I was and what I wanted to do. So I think just sticking to what you know from the beginning and what you came for, I think that's really important.
And I have a few things. I think try new things, first of all. Like I said, join different clubs, take different classes that aren't within, you know, the normal track, whether it be an elective or just something completely random. Again, you can either meet, you know, fellow students who are in all these other organizations, or you might even love the class and you might even, you know, decide you're more interested in that. So I would say primarily, or first of all, try something new. Secondly, I would say don't, how do I say this? Believe in yourself and hold your own, I guess, trust your own intuition. There's, you know, when you go to college, you have all these people that you're trying to make proud. You think you have this like image that you have to uphold, and again, that's kind of that ego where it might prevent you from trying new things. It might prevent you from meeting new people. It might prevent you from asking for help. So at the end of the day, you got to know that like you're doing this for, you might be doing this for other people, but you're the one that is going to deal with the consequences, for better or for what or for worse. You're the one that has to take the classes. You're the one that has to study. You're the one that has to look for the job. So, you know, I did this 'cause I love my parents, but at the end of the day, I did it for myself as well, because I am making my own path. And then last is trust the process, which is, again, like super cliche, but it is just something that you have to do. You know, there's no one clear-cut way to do it. What worked for your brother or your best friend might not work for you. So you got to trust your own process, actually, not just trust the process, but your own process.
Can I add in on that real quick? Because I definitely agree with all that. I would say also, like, I think I might have misheard the question from the jump, so sorry. But I would say, like, don't feed into the mentality that you have to graduate in 4 years, and that even after that, like, you're going to know exactly where you're going and what you're doing. Like, that's a big thing that tends to hold people back. And I think that's what you're getting at with trusting the process, and how you mentioned, like, you know, sticking to a plan and then changing it later to some degree. So I think also allowing yourself to be aware that, like, higher education is very elite in and of itself. So, like, obviously don't compare yourself to others, because you don't know their background or where they're coming from and the privileges that they might have that help them get to where they are.
I like that. Good responses, guys. And then I guess, yeah, I'm gonna ask maybe like one more question. But how do you think your institution or maybe other mentors could have better supported you, so you would face either less barriers or like had less complications in a sense during your undergrad? So yeah, how do you feel you could have been better supported?
I mean, I know I hold my own destiny, I guess you could say, with how my experience in college goes, but I do know that I was not aware of a majority of the resources that my graduating institution offered. So at UIC, we have a program called Las Ganas, and I wasn't aware of that program until I was no longer qualified for it. I think that was a very discouraging experience. There were a lot of internships that I was not aware of until I was no longer qualified. So I think it's important that maybe professors or advisors take, you know, 2 minutes out of their day either to email all students or to send mass mail to students to, you know, get them aware of these resources, because obviously we all are aware of, you know, the Wellness Center or the Writing Center, but there are particular programs designated for particular groups of people that would have benefited me, but I didn't know about them. And it wasn't until I was no longer qualified for them that I actually knew. So I think just awareness is key. Maybe perhaps if they integrated more, you know, social media use to their advantage, or emails, or just some platform that we're able to use in order to become aware. Otherwise, you know, students like me aren't taking advantage of these free resources that we're, you know, I guess not free, we're paying for them. But that would have been helpful.
I'll go. I mean, I think my mentors were pretty good for the most part. And again, I think this part of it is on the behalf of the student. Like, in addition to trying out new organizations, go to your office hours and go talk to your professors, because they really like that. Literally, I got a research position just from going to office hours, and this was like, you know, very early on in my college career, which probably shaped, you know, what I wanted to pursue. And that professor became one of my mentors. So if I hadn't, gone to office hours, that probably wouldn't have happened. And just in general, I feel like my major was pretty small, or we only had a few different professors. So, they get to know your face, and then they really like you, are willing to write letters of recommendation for you. Aside from that, I think I was pretty lucky going out of high school. I was always in like these college prep kind of clubs and groups and stuff like that. So I think I did have sort of a leg up where I knew about the workshops, I knew about the resources and stuff like that. But if I didn't have that, I think definitely you'd have to make that on your own. So it is up to you in a sense to find a mentor, because mentors most of the time won't find you. So that can be, again, in a club, in an organization, but professors are great for mentors. So you just have to seek them out.
Yeah, and I guess touching on that, what would be some recommendations that you all, I guess now this is Mia's question, but what recommendations do you have for students to get their foot in the door or to find these research opportunities? Because I feel like some students, I feel like you kind of get lucky sometimes, like it's 50-50. Some students get lucky and they find all these opportunities, and some like it just totally like misses them. So what are some of your tips to, make sure you get your foot in the door?
I think coming from me, who is really shy and a bit awkward at asking for opportunities, I think the biggest piece of advice I have is to look for internships in the beginning of the semester rather than the middle or the end, because that's when the internships or the research opportunities begin. So I know when I was at UIC, I looked up a bunch of research opportunities around August, September of the fall semester. And I found so many, and me not having any experience in research or particular programs, I ended up getting a position, and I was, very pleased and excited because it was my first one, and I wasn't really good at networking or wasn't really good at asking for help, but the fact that I got one just for pushing myself and doing it at the right time, I think was really beneficial. So just know that a lot of them begin during the beginning of the semester, particularly the fall, and they want a 1 to 2 year commitment. So it's good to do it around your sophomore, I would say sophomore year, to be honest, because if you do it your junior year and senior year, you might be a little bit distracted, with applications for graduate school or taking exams and things like that.
So I answered this one before by accident, but I would like to add on to like how you had mentioned, Lily, like knowing when to apply and things like that. But I would also say that typically, sometimes, not always, but sometimes there's a lot of exclusion on who gets told about certain programs and stuff like that. So my advice would be like, even if somebody tells you like, no, I don't think you're eligible for this, or no, like this might not be what you want to do, or like anything that, if it's anything discouraging, like apply on your own if you really want it, and find somebody who will support you mentor wise and mentor you and believe in what you can do. Like don't let one no be what like holds you back from applying to something, because there were a lot of research opportunities at my institution that you couldn't get into unless you had certain like a certain GPA or certain like level in school and whatnot. And I found other ones that were more inclusive, but it was very much so going out of my way to find them and having a great mentor that brought my attention to them. And it was stuff that I didn't even know I was eligible for. So opportunities exist. Just make sure that you kind of have to be actively looking for them, because a lot of them like kind of kept on the hush.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but again, just going out of your way to get in front of your professors and like get them to know your face. I think one of the best things you can do, especially if you're going to have that professor again, is sit in the front row, ask questions. I know it can be daunting to ask questions in lectures. So if you sit in the front row, it's better because you can't see everyone looking at you. So a little hack there. But yeah, you know, professors love students who will ask questions. And if you're not comfortable with that, you know, you can always go to office hours. And again, that's even better because it's one-on-one time, or they'll at least recognize who you are. Um, Professors love that. They love to see students who are inquisitive, who want to learn, who take it seriously. Like I said, I got that research opportunity. I got a mentor out of it. Other people I met in that lab. Um, so yeah, just getting in front of different people, being nice to like literally anyone you come in contact with that, you know, that you're in an organization with or a job with. I got a different internship just from a coworker mentioning it to me. She didn't really tell anyone else just because, you know, we had that rapport, so she felt comfortable letting me know about it. So even if they're not, you know, even if it's not within your major, even if they're not someone that you think, you know, has anything to offer, there's always something that people can offer. At the very least, friendship and networking down the line. I, you know, when I was in college, social media wasn't as big. Not to date myself a little bit, but nowadays, I mean, social media is huge. So um, LinkedIn obviously is a big platform for networking. So it's very easy to learn about new opportunities and jump on. Usually, your university will offer some sort of like job board or something like that. So like um, everyone else has said, just be on those, always refresh those, be on the lookout for different opportunities, and don't be afraid to just, you know, shoot your shot. Keep your resume updated. I will say that. Obviously, don't lie on it. It's hard to have a lot of experience coming out of high school, and that's another reason to try new things, because people like to see a diversified resume. You know, when you see, you know, as an employer, if you're just looking at 100 resumes and they're all similar, it's really hard to pick. So being able to expound on why that opportunity is beneficial to your experience goes a long way. You know, I've done a lot of different things like summer camp counselors. I mean, just, you know, PT internships, strength and conditioning internships, lab work, like everything. So yeah, just put yourself in front of people. Always be courteous. Always be kind. People, I mean, most of us want to work with people, and at the end of the day, we have to know how to interact with them. So people love to interact with people. Yeah.
I wanted to see real quick question, Crystal. Ooh, I don't know where my words are. Sorry. There was the question that we answered before that I didn't get a chance to answer. Can I just like put in a little 2 cents there? I think the question was like, how could our like institutions better support us? I wanted to say like definitely having a more diverse like professors and stuff, having more diverse professors, staff, things like that, as well as I would say like including people from the demographics that we do research on, coming to panels, coming to discussions, because a lot of times like it seems like it's pretty much pushed that like unless you study this you won't know anything about this, but there's people who have lived experience in the fields that we're looking at, in the demographics that we're looking at, that should have like kind of a voice in these communities. And it could be very welcoming having more panels like that and discussions at institutions that include more people that aren't just in higher education. And then obviously like having a mentor that can raise awareness on what you can get involved in, things like that, bring opportunities, make you aware of opportunities, things like that. And then making sure that like your mentor and the social support that you have believe in you as well. And showing up to events as much as you can. Like obviously that's hard when, you know, you do have work outside of school, things like that. And I wish my institution was a bit more transparent about a lot of things, specifically around funding and different opportunities. I think if they were kind of more transparent, stuff like that, it could better support first generation college students. And then I would just say as a tad bit of advice, know your rights as a student. Like know as much as you can about Title IX, and don't be afraid to like call out things when you should.
Yeah, I really like that. And the part where you're talking about like incorporating different people into research, and like not just like higher education people or in like in panels. There was actually one conference I went to. It was like a cancer conference, and a lot of researchers go obviously to present their work. but no one who would ever benefit from their research ever goes to conferences, if you think about it. So like if you're having a cancer like conference, you're never going to see survivors in the conference. And so this one conference that I did go to did invite cancer survivors. And I thought it was the most genius idea ever. I was like, who would benefit more from hearing cancer research than cancer survivors themselves? And so I like that idea, and I hope more people would like to like incorporate the normal average person who has dealt with that illness or whatever that they're researching on to attend those research conferences and learn more about either what happened to them or what could happen to them and things like that. But I like that. Any last comments, I guess, before we end the meeting? The panel.
I hope you all do well with whatever you're pursuing. Like, it all sounded amazing.
Thank you. I hope you guys do well. It's so inspiring to hear your guys' stories and know that I'm not alone and that, you know, you have similar situations. And it's just good to diversify the STEM field, like Crystal says. So I'm very happy to see these panels, you know, come to life. I can't wait to see who else joins them. And Crystal, it's a phenomenal idea. I'm really excited about watching all of them.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, everyone. Great to hear a little bit of your stories. And Crystal, thank you for having this opportunity. I think it's pretty awesome. Yeah, I think it's a great resource for everyone. And to anyone listening, I would say, you know, don't be afraid to shoot for the moon. Like literally, the worst thing that can happen is, you know, you can try again if you don't make it the first time. So yeah, thanks everyone. And
yeah. And would it be okay if I share your emails with any students who would be interested in asking you more questions? Because this wasn't like live how I expected it to
right.
be. If anyone does have questions, would it be?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
All right. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, and I'm hoping to post it tonight. It might take a couple hours to upload it. But yeah, I'll keep
Cool.
you guys updated and I'll email you once it's
You.
All right. Best of luck, everyone. Thanks,
Bye.
Crystal.
Thank you.
Bye. Nice meeting
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Bye. Nice to meet you
I'll see you.
guys.